Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Critical Conversations. I'm your host, Karissa Dean. Today, I have Dr. Lynn Banis. Did I say that right?
You sure
Yes.
did.
Okay, great. Dr. Lynn Banis here today. You guys, I'm really thrilled to have had the opportunity to connect with her and bring her to today's show. We're going to be talking about a topic that might be a little heavy for your heart, so make sure you pull up a comfortable seat, maybe a warm cup of tea, and sit with us for the next little bit. Dr. Lynn, will you please tell everyone a little bit more about you, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Sure. We are going to talk about grief, and I got involved in that. I had spent years in corporate doing leadership development and coaching, and when my mother came to live with us at 100, I shut down everything. But then, and she lived to 106, but after she passed, my little brother passed and my husband passed, all within 2.5 years. So after I made my way through that dark tunnel, I kind of had an epiphany, and that was, I have all this background and knowledge and skills, and I want to do something. So I'm going to try to help widows, because what I found was that most of the things that are available are like grief groups, which help them understand their emotions and how to manage those. But nobody takes them all the way through to creating and living their new life. So that's what I do. And it is amazing and so rewarding to see the light come on, the glimmer that, oh my gosh, there is possibility, and the joy when they get to the place they want to be. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think the work that you do is so important. I've had my bouts with grief, and I think you're exactly right. There's no real group or formula out there that helps people identify with, well, what's next, and
Right.
you get to create something that's really beautiful and joyful, and it's really powerful work. It's hard work too. So can we start by, I want to give a brief, I think with your vast history and education and experience here, what is the main gap that you see for people post grief that keeps them stuck and afraid of moving forward? And maybe it's not even fear. I don't know. I'm going to turn it over to you.
There's a lot of fear. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Because literally you have the rug pulled out from under you, like overnight, in a moment, in a second. And your identity is gone with that.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of the big things that keep people stuck, because, at first you hear, I can't live without him. I don't know how to live without him. And then there's a fear of moving forward, because many women say, well, if I move forward, I'll forget him, or, there will be no, well, that's not true. That's part of your life. And I help you create a new life that honors that and brings that forward. And, people just don't know how. They don't have a clue what to do. And there's a lot of work we do with beliefs, because those keep people really stuck.
Yeah.
And, and your values shift.
Yeah.
Because your whole being, I mean, from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed, it's different. And your brain knows that. Your brain has changed immediately too, to try to help you cope and adjust to your new environment. So we've got to work on rewiring your brain to accept and accommodate your new sense of self and where you're going.
Yeah. Is that why people stay stuck though? Because the brain gets involved, and so then we become unconscious of how our brain is really crippling us?
That's one of the things. Absolutely. And the fear cripples us too. So many people, it just, and then there's always, my husband always used to say, and I think this is true, the pain that you're in right now, at least you understand it. If you step out into something new, you don't have any idea what that's going to be like.
Right.
And so, so that stepping out, so many women can't even imagine, what the next week is going to be, much less
Yeah.
the rest of their life. And they dread it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that that is because women have been conditioned to need that partner? And so there's this weight of like, I can't do it alone?
Yes, I think that's part of it. It just, for the first 2 years, I finally downsized, moved to a smaller house. I was in that house for a year and a half and didn't have pictures up or anything because I can't do it by myself. My sons-in-law are not available. And, I finally said, Lord, you don't have to live like this. Get a handyman.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, there's such a reluctance to spend money too. Big fears around money.
Yeah.
Am I going to have enough to live on? Just, I don't
All
know
the
what the
things.
bills are that come up. My husband
Yeah.
always paid the bills, always took care of things, so it's a lonely trip.
It is a lonely trip. When I want to jump back just for a brief second, because you mentioned, our brain keeping us safe, the beliefs and the values. And I find that the work I'm doing with women in, wanting to be better in life, to feel better, to be better at business, it is a lot around our beliefs, and we
Mhm.
get stuck because we know what to expect, right? Even though it's horrible, we know we can get through that horrible.
Right.
What have you found is key for women to break through post grief, that hurdle of like, yes, this is horrible, but we're going to move to a new kind of horrible?
Yeah, exactly what I said. It's interesting because it's very hard. You have to work hard with women to help them understand and accept that there is a possibility. There are possibilities. Once they begin to see that glimmer of light, then, it's much easier to move forward. And
Yeah.
that's an important phrase. I never use going on or anything like that. I use moving forward because you are bringing your past with you. And, I always help my clients find ways to honor the relationship that they had.
Yeah.
It's not gone. It's part of you.
Right.
So,
How many women do you meet find resistance in their ability to be loved again? Because I think for a lot of women who are maybe younger, that fear of, oh my gosh, what if my partner dies? I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life.
yeah, yeah. And that takes time. That takes time. And I think helping people create and develop relationships. And of course, first with women and with, redesigning those relationships with your family and the friends, and some of your friends disappear. There's no question about that. But once people understand that they can be loved by others, it becomes more comfortable for them, and they, often then step forward into a
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. What about the dynamic, with women who have children? What, at any age, right? I mean, it would
Right.
be traumatic, right? So talk
Absolutely.
to us a little bit about, that. How do you support that mother who's grieving, who's then also leading her family through grief as well?
Yeah. That's a very difficult situation to be in. And people don't take the time to realize that children process grief in a different way. So it's very important to, if you don't know how to deal with that, then you need to get some support and some help because, kids are always going to figure that they had something to do with it and it's
Yeah.
their fault. And so being very patient with them, really opening conversation, and showing your grief. I don't think you should hide your tears because it's sad and it's part of life,
Right.
and but also being able to sit around and have memories and giggle about silly things that the person did, and gee, I really remember this, I'm going to remember this forever. And of course now we're in the holidays,
Yeah.
and there's so many things about traditions that I know I just the first few years I could not even look at an empty chair at the family table. So I had always done a formal turkey dinner, the whole 9 yards for Christmas, and we just we just created a new tradition. We now are much more casual, which is not so much work for me, and we
Yeah.
have chili or something and just have a good time together. And
Yeah.
so that's our new tradition, and everybody's perfectly happy with it. But it's important to create some of those things to make the transition easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you get stuck and it has to be this old way, you can stay in that habitual,
Yeah.
grief, right?
Yep.
Because it's never going to be the same. So, how much of the work is really change?
Wow. Most of it is because, we change limiting beliefs, we change mindset, we take a look at values and beliefs and see if those have changed. And usually you have your same values, but they become in different order.
Yeah.
So, so then, how do we act on that? And I help, I use a technique where I do a biographical study with people when they were in flow, really just doing what they love to do. And then I help them understand how it is that they relate to the world, how they do things in a granular way. Not just I learned, but I learned by research. I learned by writing. I learned by, on and on and on. And then we create, look at that and say, well, what kind of environment do you need to be in that's going to support you as you move
Mm,
forward? And we make sure that what she's creating for her vision for her future life has those things in it. Because we all know when our expectations and reality aren't pretty well matched up, we're miserable.
yeah. Well, exactly. I think that a lot of us get stuck visualizing, the perfect holiday or the perfect, wedding or the perfect childbirth, that like we see it this one way, and the moment it's different, that's when all that discord and discomfort and frustration come in, because we want it to be one way, but the reality is none of our lives go the way that it's pictured,
No,
right?
right, exactly. Exactly. And that kind of brings up something else that I think is so important, especially for young women, when you're not thinking about losing a spouse.
Yeah.
But it's so important that you take care of things and have them all organized, because many, like me, were left just bang overnight, didn't expect it. And trying to even get into your spouse's computer. Took
Yeah.
my sister-in-law 3.5 weeks because my brother was in a financial um, program where he had to have everything secure. And, and you don't know what bills maybe your spouse had that you didn't know about, and who's gonna who's gonna call me next and say you owe money.
Yeah.
And who do I call? Who's my lawyer? Who's this? Who's that? Those things, and not only does it help you, but it helps your family.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people never consider those what ifs. I know for my husband and myself, we met with an attorney a while ago to kind of go over like what would we want to have happen to our daughter? How do we want the finances to roll out to her? Who's going to take care of her? And so it's interesting to be able to kind of pre-plan and think about some of that. And I was able to do that because when my college roommate's dad got diagnosed with cancer, that was like the trigger point for us, as a collective, unit. We were very tight. And so we started talking and having those conversations about what's in your dad's names, what's in your mom's name, what's his, preference when it does get down to the wire, and those are difficult conversations, but you're absolutely right. They're so important. And what it does is, even if you never sign, like we never filled out the paperwork and sent it off to the attorney, I have more information now, and I know what to do, and our family has more information and they know what our preference is. Should we go through and do all the paperwork? Yeah, probably. I don't know, right? Because you never know. We didn't. Maybe we will. But tell me a little bit more, about what you learned when you went through that, because how do you navigate grief and the reality that bills are going to keep coming?
Great question, because you are in brain fog big time. You can't think. It's literally, your vision sometimes gets impaired. You can't see,
Yeah.
And being able to make decisions, you don't want to have to make major decisions because you don't want to make mistakes, but you don't want the fear of making mistakes to keep you from making decisions. So if some of those are handled for you, it really makes it much, much easier. And so that it takes brain fog sometimes a year or more to really, for you to get back in the saddle, so to speak, and be productive and more like yourself. And although one interesting thing that I found for several people is that the second year was harder than the first because the numbness had worn off. And then
Oh.
facing everything and knowing exactly what it is, instead of being in that numb, foggy place.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And so that, and I do want to touch on talking with folks who are grieving, because there's such a taboo in our society about talking about death and the whole process. I mean, when you think about it, it takes a year and a half, 2 years to really, really recover and create your new life. And our corporate America gives you 3 days.
Yeah.
And so we know what happens. People don't know what to say. They're afraid. And so they don't say anything. They kind of disappear. Your family rallies around at first, but then they have their lives and they go on to do their things. And you feel like, well, I don't want to, bother them and be a burden on them. And they have their family. And so there's a number of things. And I'd like to offer the audience a little download on things you can say when that dreaded no is, or what do you say when you get this question, how are you? Because you say, I'm okay, I'm doing fine, but actually you want to scream, I'm terrible. This is awful, and I need somebody to listen to me. And it's awkward for people. So you get left alone. You get left alone when you go back to work. Nobody comes in and says hello because they're afraid they'll get in a conversation they're uncomfortable with. So the most important thing, I was talking to a guy today that he does painting and home repairs and stuff like that. And he was saying, I think I have a number of people that I know that could work with you. And he said, people just I don't really know what to say, but I just listened and I said, that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't say things. Don't try to make it better. You can't.
Right.
So many of the phrases we hear, like, oh, he's in a better place, or, so on and so forth, are hurtful, just
Yeah.
plain hurtful to widows. And so if you can just let them know, I'm here for you, go and sit with them. You don't have
Yeah.
to talk, and they don't have
Yeah.
to talk. If they start to cry, put your arms around them and give them a long hug and say, I'm here for you. I got you.
Yeah.
Um, those sorts of things. And of course, I have a little piece out there called Beyond Casseroles. And the fact is that, the first 2 weeks or so, you are inundated with food for your
Yeah.
own little self. You've got these big casseroles of lasagna. And, and then it's all gone. Everybody's gone. Everything's gone. And so we need to continue the process of supporting people, um, as best we can, and understanding how to talk with people and how to support them is huge.
Yeah, the continuous check-in. It's so hard. My uncle, my aunt died suddenly when I was in high school. And then in the last, let's see, so I think he was single for about 10 years. And then he found somebody else, and she died suddenly of cancer. And so he has been like inundated with grief, and it's hard because I want to be there for him, but you're right, I get busy in my own life. And so I think this simple reminder, though, I know how much it means to him when I just send him a quick text and say, hey, I'm thinking of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it opens that door for him to say, I have more to say, or there's something I want to share, and of course, like holidays, we're always inviting him, but it's more than the holidays, right? Because when you look at the calendar, the holidays all happen in like like they're all in the same quarter, and
Yeah.
whoever's idea that was, I would love to communicate with them, because it's a nightmare, right? It's
Yeah.
like who designed Thanksgiving and then Christmas and New Year's and not like Halloween even, like it's
Yeah.
all happening. And so I think being more conscious as individuals, I did a podcast yesterday with somebody, and we were talking about how we need to show up for each other more,
Exactly.
and that's how we heal as a collective. I have
Yeah.
a question for you around, and you might not have the answer for this, but why does death make people so uncomfortable?
It is our culture. When you think about other cultures where they get together, everybody,
Mm-hmm.
the whole community, and they cry, they yell, they get rid of the emotion, they support one another. But that's their belief system. That's how their society works.
Yeah.
And for some reason, ours and many others, it's just really something we avoid. And it's really kind of dangerous because we are in an era of collective grief. When you
Yeah.
think about what's going on in the world, it's constant. It's everywhere. And day after day, you hear the news, and there's more, and there's more. And it literally does build on.
Yeah.
So finding ways for us to unburden ourselves, be kind to ourselves, be loving to ourselves, give ourselves a break
Yeah.
is really, really important. Otherwise, it just piles up and you're sick. It makes you sick.
It does make you sick. I have this question for you. I hold this belief because cancer has been very, it's around me.
Yeah.
I don't have any yet, and I hope not to, but a lot of people I love have had cancer, passed from cancer, overcome cancer. I have this belief where I really believe that cancer is our avoidance in life. What are your thoughts around that? I'm curious what you think.
Well, all disease is a result of inflammation. And inflammation comes from not only food, what we put in our bodies, but how we treat our bodies and how we think. And, so the more the prevalent the cancer is, which it is, we're seeing that. I think that it's very likely that,
Yeah.
that you're right.
Yeah.
And then when I talk about the collective grief, it makes it even worse
Yeah. Totally.
because it
Yeah.
just
And you're
builds, it compounds.
exactly. And then when I look at like my aunt and all these people, my uncle, my friend's father, kid I used to babysit, I look at like what it is. It often maybe isn't even their own like stuck energy, but like a family collective, and then they're the empathetic person who's like gonna carry it all.
Oh yeah.
And wear the burden of it, right? We kind of wear our sicknesses as armors too, in a way. And I feel like as a collective, especially with grief, if you don't face your grief will overcome you. And that's one
Absolutely.
thing, I'm so proud of a lot of the people I know who've lost somebody. They go into their grief and they befriend it. And that is how they overcome it, because they learn to understand why it exists, and they look at it to like, okay, what do I do with this now? How do I get to be
Exactly.
the next version of me?
Yeah. Trying to get people to the point where they realize I have this incredible opportunity to
Yeah.
create a different life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be somebody doing what I did, creating a business. You can have a very happy life reading books and doing needlework and volunteering, all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
But getting to the point where you feel free to do that and excited about it,
Yeah.
that's the steps that need to be taken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm thinking back on when my grandfather died, and how my grandma really turned it into a superpower for her to be more present in other areas of her life, because she didn't have to take care of him anymore. And it did give her freedom to
Mm-hmm.
create something different for herself. And I think she was really happy about that opportunity,
Yeah.
to end her life on her own choices, right?
Yeah.
What else do you want people to know, as we're getting to that 30-minute mark here in the podcast?
Okay. Just that I think it's so important that we open our eyes and our hearts, but really see people,
Yeah.
notice where they are and what they're, what they're going through, because we're all constantly going through things. And, parts of grief are depression and, illness. All those things are all related. And so be there. Be there.
Yeah.
You don't have to do things really. You just need to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Open the door and just hold it open.
Hold it open. Yeah. Don't just say, well, if you need anything, let me know, because
Yeah.
that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't communicate what we need when we're in grief, can we?
No, no,
Yeah.
no. And the loneliness is such a big deal that just to be there, just to let them know you're thinking of them, send a card every once in a while or a text or, whatever. That goes out a long, long way.
Yeah. It really does. Yeah. And I think too, for people who maybe haven't yet experienced grief intimately, even checking on your living beings, who you notice have, struggles. I think that would really help our world move towards a direction of not being so grief ridden or, angry and
Right.
all the
Yeah.
things, right?
So I have one quick real tip. I know that we're doing this right before the holidays, but this tip will work. Holidays are all year long,
Yeah.
so it's not just the winter holidays, but keep a little, like a mason jar or something, and put little phrases on pieces of paper, what you really appreciate about somebody else. And for us, we sit around after Christmas dinner and read those and just have a blast, and it really breaks the ice because we can remember the beautiful things about someone.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's such a beautiful thing. And it's so true to do that in community would be really
Yeah.
healing
You can
and
do it before
beneficial.
birthdays. You can, all sorts of things. And I mean, how many times do people just pay attention to you, focus on
Yeah.
you? It
Yeah.
doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great, great idea. Thank you so much, Dr. Lynn.
Oh,
We will be sure to link your all the things how people can reach you. Is there a platform or a place that you want to shout out while we're still on the air?
well, LinkedIn is a great place, and Facebook.
Okay,
Yeah, both
awesome.
of those I'm pretty busy with. So
Okay,
thank you
good.
so
So
much
we'll
for this opportunity.
absolutely appreciate you and the work that you're doing. And I am sorry for your loss, but I love that you were able to take that and turn it into a deep purpose that really can support the rest of us. So
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome. I love it. Thanks so
Uh,
much.
Good. All right. Take care.
Okay, you too.